This is a ManeHustle Media podcast.
Welcome to the Militantly Mixed Black as Fuck edition, the podcast about blackness from the mixed black perspective, because we are mixed, but we're black. Blacker than black. You know what I'm saying? That's my girl Mane, MixedGirlMane right there.
And my boy Blerdvision.
You got it. What's going on, girl?
Nothing. I mean, you know, I'm just podcasting literally every single day of my life now.
Man.
That's all I'm doing.
That's your thing now.
What are you doing?
I'm chilling.
All right, so we both finally, like it's been out for weeks, we both got to see BlacKkKlansman this week, and we thought it might be a good idea to talk about it on this episode.
There's never been a black cop in this city. We think you might be the man to open things up around here.
Hello, this is Ron Stallworth calling. Who am I speaking with?
This is David Duke.
Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan. That David Duke?
God. Last time I checked. What can I do for?
Well, since you asked, I hate blacks. I hate Jews, Mexicans and Irish, Italians and Chinese. But my mouth to God's ears, I really hate those black rats. And anyone else, really, that doesn't have pure white Aryan blood running through their veins.
I'm happy to be talking to a true white American.
God bless white America. The KKK is planning an attack.
How do you propose to make this investigation?
We'll establish contact over the phone. We'll need a white officer to play me when they meet face to face.
You for the white race, Ron?
Oh, hell yeah.
So there becomes a combined Ron Stallworth.
Can you do that?
With the right white man, we can do anything.
When's the last time they let a rookie lead an investigation? Oh, that's right. Never.
Okay, become his friend. Let's get invited back.
So what kind of stuff you guys do?
Cross burnings, marches. This is fixing to be a big year for us.
You ask too many questions. You undercover or something?
We must unite and organize to fight racism.
Are you down for the liberation of black people?
Power to the people.
All power to all the people.
All power to all the people.
That's right, sister.
For you, it's a crusade. For me, it's a job.
You're Jewish. That hatred, doesn't that piss you off?
You're taking this Jew lie detector test.
Why are you acting like you ain't got skin in the game?
I'm telling you, the wars are coming.
White power! Black power!
Knights of the Ku Klux Klan.
That's us, Stallworth brothers. We're on a roll, baby.
America first.
America first! America first!
If I would have known this was a Klan meeting, I wouldn't have taken this mother.
So let's get into it.
So we could do our Siskel and E Black. You know what I mean? We could do our nice little review on it. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So
All right.
E Black edition. There we go. I'll let you start since you saw it before me. You get to start. Okay.
Well, I have a love relationship with Spike Lee movies. Like, of course, as we were growing up, that he was pretty much the only name in black movies for, you know, most of our childhood and stuff like that. So there's a lot of things in his movies that are pretty significant. And then, but his personality and some of the stuff he does publicly kind of rubs me a little bit the wrong way sometimes. And I feel like he kind of dropped off for a bit. But this one, I feel like this is probably, and mind you, I haven't seen a Spike Lee movie for a long time, but I feel like this is like one of the best movies in his catalog.
Right. That's kind of how I felt about it. You know, I mean, there are I mean, there are some movies that do some really good things that do some really good things, that some that are kind of like, the storytelling's a little off, but you kind of get his understanding, like what he is trying to do.
Right.
And I felt as though the way that this movie was well done, in a sense that you just watched it and you knew that it was some stuff that happened before, but just the parallels, you know what I'm saying? That you just could see.
Right.
And the way that he worded things and the way that they did things, it was really well put together.
Yeah. So I guess we probably should say before we get too far into it that if you haven't watched the movie yet, we're going to go ahead and do some spoilers so you can just put us on pause and come back another time. Right. But yeah, so I think there were things that the way they were wording responses and the movie was telling us what we're going with through now. Like it wasn't an accident that they dropped that line about super predators in there with the Alec Baldwin intro. It wasn't an accident that they made sure we heard America First so many times, because people seem to forget that America First is one of the Klan's mottos or whatever. And I think at some point, don't they say something like, we're just out here trying to make America great again? Don't they?
No, yeah, America, like exactly. They said we're trying to bring America's greatness. Right. I had a look. I was like, wow. Like that, it was what, it was said a little bit differently, but you got it. You know what I mean?
Because there's for a few minutes you start to forget that it's because you know that it comes from a true story. You forget that it's a narrative movie, and you kind of let yourself think you're watching a documentary for a second. Right. So when they say some of those things, it kind of gut punches you, and you're just like, oh shit, we're going through that right now. I do have a couple of criticisms for it, but I still I'm on board with the movie. I hope it pulls in big numbers. I think it's our obligation now to really turn out for any movies that are made by Black or other POC directors that have predominantly Black cast. In this case, it's not necessarily that it was a predominantly Black cast, but it was still a Black story. But I understand the criticisms that are coming from other directors or other Black people that are saying, do we really need, I think I sent you that article that Boots Riley said the thing about, do we really need another story about the cops being the heroes out there? Right. And that the only really thing that kind of sanctions this one is that it's, motivated by a Black cop being the hero. But really, the guy who had his body on the line is the Philip character, the Adam Driver character. Right. And since we don't know anything about him, they kept his identity secret as far as I understand and things like that. So we're never going to get to hear what it was really like for him. We just, have an idea of him through Ron's character. So I do feel like, was it the best story to kind of highlight the Black struggle? I don't know, but I do still think it was a really good movie, and I think what they did, if what they did in the movie was closer to reality, that they kept crimes against Black people down pretty low during the time that they were active and all that kind of stuff, then I think that is an important story to tell. My only other criticism, and this is just a petty one, is I know that the Turturros are in all the Spike Lee movies. I know that they got like a way long relationship, and I love a Turturro brother, but Nick had no business being a white supremacist in that movie.
It was super weird. When he came in and was the explosive guy, I was like, what the and I would think that he would look at him and be like, look at his hair a little bit and then like,
Everybody in that room should have been like, what's your deal? Because I know that the Turturros are, I guess they're Italian Jews, but Nick is the brownest of the three because there's his sister too. Like, he's the brownest one. He's Italian Jewish, but looks Puerto Rican. He's got no business being in those scenes as a white supremacist, unless they had introduced him as like, we know he's brown, but he's okay because of XYZ, but they never gave us a moment like that. So I am pulled out every time Nick pops up just because he doesn't look the part. And I don't really want, we're mixed and we deal with, our feelings about colorism and stuff like that in movies, but there are moments in when, if you're going to be a white supremacist, bring me the bluest eyed, blondest hair, Nazi poster child actor you got, and I'll take that character, Right.
Go get him. I felt like, because it was kind of jarring when he was like, I'm here, and even like he had a bit of an accent, you know what I'm saying?
New York accent he cannot hide from, right?
And I'm like, is he not like is he Puerto Rican, but he's cool with him, or you know what I mean? Like, it didn't really. Like, it was jarring at first, and I was just like, okay, I know that he's in those movies, and I even told my boy, I was like, he's always in his movies and shit, so I get that. But you could have went and got old boy that was that's his homie. What was the first Hulk? What's his name?
Oh, Ed Norton.
Ed Norton. You know what I'm saying? That's the white boy. That's the white boy that's been in, in the other white boy movies, and he can use him. Or even, I mean, it was with his curly hair on top. I just thought that they were going to be like, because they were talking about it, and I'm just going to use, like, they were talking about Jewish people. Mm-hmm. So I was thinking, does he not look at him and say, like, the Jewish hair, the little, a little bit of, the fro. Yeah. So it was kind of a weird thing, but I mean, it was a little quibble, but I get it.
It was the only thing that really ever took me out, because like when you're setting up to, when you're about to sit in a movie and you're going to hear racial slurs and you're talking about the KKK, so you're going to hear, the hard ER, and you're going to hear things against Jewish people or things against Asian, like you already set up, it's going to happen, so you're there for it. It's fine. But then you have Nick Turturro come out here and he says niggas instead of niggers, and he says it like an Italian from New York who kind of just like, I mean, in any kind of movie that shows the different cultural neighborhoods of New York, all the groups say it. So he says it like it's the not the hard ER word. He's saying the other word. So it's just like it was weird. I don't know, like, is he doing it as a challenge for in terms of acting, where he's just like, I'm a Jewish actor, but I'm going to go ahead and take this anti-Jewish character as a challenge. Like you're trying to be like you're a method actor. You're trying to get into that character. Like, look, I'm totally opposite of this. So I'm going into this character. Look how far I can go from what I am. Right. I mean, to play this because
character.
We already had that with Adam Driver's role. Like, he even has to say it at some point. He's like, I'm Jewish, but I'm only like ethnically Jewish. I never had to think about this stuff. Now I have to think about it all the time. And like, I think that kind of a role was important too, to go ahead and do that. But he just. I mean, he looks, I guess I'm doing quotation fingers, he looks Jewish or whatever, but Nick Turturro just looks like an Italian Puerto Rican or something like that.
And that's probably weird. The Italians, they that's my white side. So I mean, some Italians are like that. But I think it's because we kind of know his background. Yeah. So I mean, it kind of pulled us out a little bit, but it was good enough to keep us still in that, in the movie and whatnot. So but I really liked it. I really liked it. The way that it happened, the movement of it. I love Denzel's son. He was really good. I liked how he sounded.
Wait, John David Washington, he's Denzel's kid?
Denzel's son.
I did not know that. Well, okay. You
didn't know that?
No, I mean, I knew he was a football player and shit like that, but I didn't realize that he was Denzel Washington's son. I mean, I remember walking out going, this kid has chops. Like, I've only ever seen him in like one scene in Ballers, when like Ballers was still on while I was waiting for Game of Thrones to come on. So that's the only experience I have watching this dude act, and I thought he did a really good job. I didn't realize he was. Oh, that's so funny, because there was one moment where he was pulling his white voice that I was thinking about, if Denzel was doing a white voice, he would move his mouth that way.
Yes, no,
but it's because he's his kid. He's got the same mouth.
There's a part, where he's mad. He's a little mad, and he does a little like a poke with his hand, and he bites his lip, type of thing. Yeah, and I was like, that's Denzel right there.
That's so funny. I didn't realize he was his kid. I was saying to Tree as we were leaving the movie theater, like, that kid, he's a football player, but he's a good actor or something like that. That's funny.
He grew up in that, Yeah.
Wow.
So there it is. I liked how they did, when he talked, you kind of had that, and it kind of put us in that situation. And I liked how he was able to just be like, look, I'm going to be black, but play a white person on the phone. And it was a good way to, I think he did it well, or Spike did it well, where he had Adam have that arc where he was like, man, I don't want to even fucking be a part of this. But then, like, bro, you kind of opened up my eyes in the sense that, like you said, he never had to think about it. To him, he was white. You feel me?
Right.
And that's always been my quibble with the whole white supremacy thing. If you can look at somebody and be like, yeah, he's white, but then he all of a sudden says, well, actually, you know, I have Jewish, and then you just hate him. But you look at him and you look like brothers. Like, that to me is such a weird dichotomy of hate and all that. So, but for him to, you know, to take that journey, I kind of like that, you know, in that. But I thought it was a well-made movie. I thought it was, it moved along very well. You know, with the, you know, I read the article you sent me with what that director said, and I kind of get it. I do, because it's I get it, because it's like, for what the police do to our people, it sucks that, you know, at some point there are some good people. I mean, like you said, there were no cross burnings while they were doing it, and you know, and the city was overall, it had no kind of grumblings and stuff. I mean, they had Stokely in town, or I should say Toure in town, and so, you know, there weren't any issues and things like that. So that, I mean, it at some point, some of that has to be addressed. Like, you know, there were some people on the inside, and I think that they even do it in the movie, because when the character that's the black student union president, she you know, she kind of even says that, like, really, you're gonna be a black man that you know, helps from the inside, and I'll like she doesn't believe that that's gonna work. You know what I mean? Right. And so, but he kind of shows that, yeah, that can work. And I think that that's one of the things that we need to actually do, is have police their own neighborhoods, and not drive in from a neighborhood that they, you know, that they've gotten a nice house up in the hills, and then it come down to the ghetto, and they're like, oh, I'm here in the ghetto, you know what I'm saying? I feel this way, you know.
I'm sure we've talked about this before, because this is one of those things that bothers me all the time. Like, I feel like there needs to be some sort of regulations that require cops to live in the neighborhoods that they police, so that they don't animalize or other the people that they're serving. It just opens people up to being able to feel superior. Like though, and I don't remember his name, the white cop that assaults, why can't I remember anybody's name in the movie? Patrice, that's what it is. So the white cop that accosts her, and then later on they all kind of do a sting operation in the bar and get him. Like, he is the example of what you think of white cops when you think of a white cop that polices an area.
He was good, right?
Oh my gosh, he was so convincing that I feel like the next time I see him in something, I'm gonna hate him. Be like, yeah, because I mean, he was creepy, and he said all of the things, and he kept touching her, and it's just like, ugh. Man. But yeah, you sit there and you want. You know that because he is in an area that isn't his own people, he feels some sort of superiority. I can do whatever I want. He even says something like that, right? He's like, I can do whatever I want to you, black people, and
I'll keep doing it.
And I'll keep doing it. And you feel like that's just the mentality that they get, and you don't know if they start off that way. You know, I'm sure some do, or if they kind of get it over time when they're used to being in a neighborhood of people that they don't seem to have any care or value for, and because the police and other white supremacist type people do animalize people of color, they can just do whatever they want. You know, they wouldn't treat people of color any better than they would treat pets. You know, like that's that mentality. And I'm glad you brought that up, because I was mad about that.
It's, you know, most definitely. I mean, because it is that way. I mean, it is. I feel as though if you take pride in your city, again, your policing kind of goes up. You know what I'm saying? In a sense that, look, I want my neighborhood to be good. I want to empower my neighborhood, because I'm gonna go home in this neighborhood, instead of I gotta go down to, you know, down the hill to this shithole and deal, you know, specifically because that's what they call them. You know what I'm saying? Thanks, President. And then, you know, and deal with these people. You know what I mean? Instead of my neighbors, right? And you know, it's a sad thing that they don't really care when they do that. But yeah, that, you know, that guy, he did a very good job.
Is that we have to try to force people to have empathy, and the only way that you can really force somebody to have empathy is to put them in front of people that they care about.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, in a lot of times that is, it sucks, but that is how it happens. Like, you know, where Dick Cheney didn't give a fuck about gay people until his daughter. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, you know, once it it's the whole, allegory of, if it's not my car's alarm that's going off, I don't give a fuck.
Right.
Right. So if I hear a car alarm going off and I see it's not mine, I'm not tripping. I'm going to have my same position. But until my car alarm, then it affects me, then that's when I actually have something. I have skin in the game, or I have a dog in the fight, or whatever. So it's that's probably just thinking about using skin in the game. That's probably a bad thing to say. I apologize.
Well,
you know what I mean? Like there's probably a history to that. I just said it in my head. I was like, there's probably some history to that.
I see what you're saying. No, but like now lately, this question has been popping up, kind of being directed at me by some of my white friends, where they're asking me, like, how do I be an ally? And, I kind of have baggage about this question, because I feel like it should just be really simple. It should just be like, treat people of color like they're human. Like, everything has to boil down to having empathy, right? And I'm not the kind of person, or at least I don't believe I'm the kind of person that needs to necessarily put myself in your shoes to have empathy for you. It's like, you're a living, breathing person. I have empathy for you. And the kinds of things that take my empathy away is, if it's a close friend or family member and they betray me, you have now lost access to my empathy, and I know it just shuts off. And that's kind of, from my Japanese side, we just sort of shut it down real fast, and we move on with our lives. And, so there's something like that, or someone like an outward racist, or someone, whatever, like asterisk 45, whatever. I don't feel like I have empathy for you, or can have empathy for you, because you don't have empathy for others. I don't need to see videos of starving children in third world countries to feel like we need to take care of our people. I don't need to walk past, like, I don't need this stuff. This stuff is I already understand that these people are human, and so they require my moral consideration. But it feels like, in a generalism kind of way, it feels like people of color are the only people who get to feel this way, because white people, because they are the majority, get to maneuver the world in a place where most people look like them, and so they don't have to ask themselves if they care about these people or not, because they all look like them. So if you take white cops and put them in white areas, maybe they're going to care more about their areas. If you take black cops and put them in black areas, you would hope you see them treating their areas the way they want their areas to be treated. Although the most recent video that came out last week,
Baltimore,
like that, I don't know the background story to that. I've only seen the video, so you sit there and wonder, just like, why do these videos keep popping up of even black cops mistreating black youth in urban areas and stuff like that? Like, I don't understand what's going on. I don't know if the argument that once you become a cop, you become white, whether you're black or not. Have you heard this little thing that basically, if you are a person of color and you become a cop, you are now white, because all of your things are sort of being trained. You're basically now being trained to target brown and black people for things. You hear a lot of ex-cops of color that'll come out and say, oh yeah, they told us to go after the Puerto Ricans in Florida, or they told us to go after the black kids in LA, whatever. And so, like, you hope that you go into, if you're policing the areas that you are from, that you also, or at least that the people look like you. Maybe just to start there, you kind of manufacture empathy through that.
Right. I mean, I would believe that. I mean, because we even have a friend who's mixed, who is a sheriff, who normally, I guess, most of the time, most of the time he sides with a Republican type of talking point, or a white type of position. I don't know if that's because his dad's positions are mostly aligned with a black side. You know what I'm saying? I don't know his mother's positions or anything like that, but his father also had, he and his father have arguments about certain things, and his dad was I think he was in the military, but the person that we're talking about, he actually most of the time has a white position on certain things. So I don't know if it's because you're now a part of the club, or that's who you're around, so you kind of get a better perspective, or you get some more things. But I just don't think that even if that was my job, I don't think that I would somehow just think that way just because of that's, you know what I mean? But you never know until you're in that.
Yeah, I guess you don't really know what kind of stuff can change you. I mean, I've definitely been in work situations in which when I start there, I kind of feel like the people at the top are, you know, the man or the enemy or whatever. And then the further I get in or the more I get promoted, I feel like, oh, you know, now you got to give them the benefit of the doubt. But in the back of my head, I'm still going, no.
Right.
You know, they're still going to, you're not going to be one of them no matter how hard you try. You are always going to be an other. So I feel like, I mean, I don't understand how you get to that place where you do start to think of yourself as somehow a part. You know, sort of like the Kanyes and the guys that are out here, you know, supporting them. It's like, it's against your best interest. I mean, we talked last week about Dak and the same type of thing. You know, he can still be driving down the street late one night and getting pulled over, and it won't matter that he was the mixed race quarterback of the Cowboys during that time. So yeah, it's pretty frustrating when you think of that kind of stuff. Right.
And I mean, you know, and to bring it back to the movie, I think that it really, I feel as though if you know, because it's kind of real life, some for real shit, like it says, you know, I think that it might allow people to see the parallels, to say, wait, I say these certain things because I believe them now. And then if you then see other people saying it in that context, then now you're kind of saying, wait. Those people are the people I detest, but they're saying the same shit that I'm saying now. Then I need to actually look into myself. You know what I'm saying? I need to go back into myself and say, wait, what the fuck? You know what I mean? Am I really on that side? You know? Yeah. So, I mean, you know, if like, you know, I think that the movie had a very poignant parallels, and a lot of people do need to see it, especially like the Kwame Ture, his whole speech. I don't know if that was like a speech that was like they had.
I've been trying to find it actually since then, and I've heard speeches. I've watched some like Kwame Ture's student union speeches, so and so or whatever, and I can see elements that matched, but not a full speech. And obviously, like I don't have the speech memorized. More of the feelings that I got, and there were certain sentences and certain phrases that really hit home or whatever. But yeah, I can't tell if that is sort of a manufactured speech to fit the moment. If it was or wasn't, either way, the parallels of what's going on in our time period to what was going on back then, you know, is something to note. Like we always say that, you know, history is cyclical, and we're going to sit there and make the same mistakes over and over again. And it's been 50 years since MLK was assassinated, and all the things that they were fighting for then, we are back to fighting for again. Under Obama, we kind of thought that the civil rights issues we were going to be fighting for in our current time was going to mostly be about LGBT issues, right? Like that seemed like to be the new civil rights pushes, and you know, we see some success there. We get some laws passed, and then boom, now we're back on on reverting the race stuff, and we have asterisk 45 out there in the way, rolling back everything, and not just rolling back things that were Obama era, rolling back things that are putting us back into the 60s, literally following some of the paths that Nixon went down, and then going a step further. I mean, you're seeing trying to push so hard to bring back stop and frisk, and or not bring back, I guess, make it more legitimate than, you know, we were fighting against it. Continuing to say that there's some, you know, they're not using the word war on drugs, but they're still pushing the whole drug thing in terms of the immigration, you know, as a justification for putting these kids in cages. You know, like,
but then giving them opioids for depression because they're depressed because they're away from their parents,
and they're in these cages with cement floors. I mean, they're like, from some of the image we're seeing, we actually see prisons that are better conditions than the way these children are being held, and they're, you know, I mean, I don't want to get fully off topic, but, sorry. But no, I mean, I'm doing it too, because everything is so paralleled. You can't help but making these connections. You're sitting in the theater and this stuff is happening. It's so funny to wait for the audience, how the audience is going to handle the credits at the end of the movie. Like, I So I wasn't moved to tears or anything like that throughout the entire movie. Even as heavy as some of the stuff was, it was mostly just like, yeah, I've seen that, or I've experienced something similar to that, or I know people who have experienced it. And it's just like, this is life. This is life. This is what we're fighting against. And then they show us the clip of the car plowing into the protesters in Charlottesville. And like, I've seen that a ton of times on my phone, right? Like it was the anniversary, plus the movie came out the day before the anniversary and everything like that. So it's not like I haven't seen that and been, moved to tears by it. But watching it on the big screen, it just even anticipating it was coming because of the videos that were being shown towards the end of the movie, that messed me up so hard. Like so hard watching it. And especially there was the guy afterwards who is screaming into the camera. He's got like vitiligo or whatever.
This is his,
and he's I had to jump out of my way, and this is my city, and I could have died just now. And he like the pain that is in his screams, like I was just blubbering towards the end of that thing. And then as soon as the credits hit, like I'm a film person, so I stay to the end of the credits, even for movies I've seen multiple times, just because it's for me. Yeah. I want to know who worked on the things. I also am curious about the different departments or where they shoot things. But for me, it's my version of showing respect to the people that provided this entertainment to me. And it's something I actually did from when I was a kid. I mean, my aunt started me doing that when I was little, and so I kind of have a value in sitting and doing that. And I get frustrated when I see people just getting up and leaving. And I was waiting. Yeah. I was waiting for them to all get up and leave once the screen went black, and I was going to be like, I'm over here crying like a baby. We just watched someone basically get plowed to her death, and I was ready to be angry at the audience, and the audience sat, and it was silent for the most part. I mean, there was a few people who got up or whatever. There was a few people who looked like they were going to get up, noticed no one was moving, and was like, oh shit, I better sit here too. And it's just like, how can you not? Like, you just witnessed, a couple hours of a really tense type of movie where people's lives were at stake during this mission, and then you watch real life, like, and it's not different, and it's 40 years apart, but it's not different, or 30 years apart, and nothing has changed, nothing has improved.
There hasn't been no significant change at all.
Right. I mean, of course there's been some things, but
but David Duke is back in his ways.
Man, he is just rolling around like must be so happy about what's going on. Two things though, like I run hot and cold with Topher Grace because I thought he was funny on This 70s Show, but I really hated his attempt at Venom, and he seems to play the same guy all the time. But man, does he look like David Duke? He looks so much like
weird, right? Duke. Like they get these dudes and they're like, well, I don't, and then you see it and you're kind of like, you see the like I had the same issue with when they got what's his name from the 70s Show to play Steve Jobs.
Oh, Ashton Kutcher. I still haven't been able to watch it because I can't see him.
I thought it was bad, and then when they show it, you're like, okay, I can see it. You know what I'm saying? I can see why they, I can see it. But he did look like a young David Duke.
He looked like him. He did a good job in the role too. Whether or not like I've seen more video of David Duke as an older man than a younger man. So I have heard recordings of speeches that he's done and stuff when he was younger. But I have seen pictures of him, and man, side by side, that dude looked just like him. That casting was spot on.
Did you know that David Duke didn't know? Like, at the end of the movie, they kind of allude to the fact where they're sitting there talking to the guy and talking to David Duke, and we're like, you don't know who the Aura. David Duke never knew until like 2015.
Until the book came out?
No, well, yes, because I guess a reporter called him for his side of the story. That's when he found out that he was a black guy. So, dude, could you imagine? For that whole time, he didn't know. Goodness sakes.
That is amazing. I mean, you wish he had known the whole time. You would have wanted to be just in that room the second he's, like, if it played out like it did in the movie where he was listening to them, him talking to him or whatever. Right. Oh, gosh, just to be in that room would have been amazing.
That is some undercover brother shit there.
I definitely don't have any empathy for an insane racist like that, so any kind of embarrassment or pain that kind of comes along along with it, I'm I'm there for it.
Yes,
because I am all about petty memes when it comes to stuff like that. But yeah, he looked a lot like him. He did a good job, and it was kind of a heartbreaking thing too with Chief Bridges when he, in the end, you feel like he's on board because he even jumps out at the bar and he arrests that other white cop, and he's like, you feel like he is in support of Stallworth and Flip and everything like that, and then they pull him into that room and he's like, yeah, we're gonna go ahead and close this investigation, and then he flips right back into that cop where you're like, oh.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And
because
it looks like Mike Pence too, so it doesn't help,
right.
The guy that played Chief Bridges looks looks like a young Pence.
But at the end of the day, they are still, they brought down some, to them, some of the bad guys got taken out. You know what I'm saying? So to them, it was like, okay, we did what, you did good in the city. You got rid of some of the bad guys. But overall, we're still in a situation or in a system that's not going to allow this to come out and embarrass the white folks. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, here's
because that's what I felt it was. I felt it's like, oh, we can't get, because if you really put that in the paper and it makes some white people look dumb. You know what I'm saying? I just
people
felt like
don't get reelected. People don't get to hold their positions, right? I mean, that's the thing is, and going back to the question of how do I be a white ally? That's it right there, right? It's like I was having a conversation with my friend about this, and she puts her body in front of people, like she is what you want a white ally to be. She sees an incident that's happening, playing out in public, and she steps in. She's one of those people. She's someone I've known for a really long time, and I care a lot about her. But when she asked me the question, I got upset at first because I have so much baggage about this question, because I do feel like it should be simple, but really I understand that it is super complicated. And I was sitting there, I was in the middle of a conversation with her, and I said, I don't want to say this, but at the same time, I want to say, put your body in front of black bodies. Put your body in front of brown bodies. Make the racists confront their racism. Make the racists decide, I'm so racist that I'm okay to go through a white person. I said, I know that basically what I'm saying is I'm asking you to be a martyr, but change doesn't happen without, in our country, change doesn't happen without white people doing things.
Exactly.
I hate to say it like that, but slavery wouldn't have been emancipated without white people making that vote, and fighting that war. The white women wouldn't have gotten the vote without white men voting to say that it was okay. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 wouldn't have got passed if it wasn't white people that were in power that signed into law. So
things do change because of changed white folks that are willing to say, look, this isn't right, or I'm willing to put myself out there to change it. Yeah.
And what's frustrating, or at least I guess what I hate about the reality of that question is that it makes me feel as a person of color that I cannot be an agent of change for me or for my people, right? Like at the end of the day, I am going to have to rely on white people in mass to support me and my people to make these changes happen. And that is, this is what's happening in this movie is that he needs white people to help him to, for lack of a better way of saying it, grant him permission to do what he did. And then he needed white people to continue to support him once he did it, and then at the end of the movie to not get that support from the person in power. I mean, he seemed to clearly have it with the Flip character and Michael Buscemi, and stuff like that. Like he seemed to have it. Yeah,
I knew that was a Buscemi because of the eyes.
He looked just
at first, I was like, wait. Is he wearing wearing a Steve Buscemi mask? He's wearing Steve Buscemi mask. Yes.
Plus, these guys all know, they're all New Yorkers. They all know they're all in the same movies. But yeah, like you felt like Ron had the support of these two guys, but the guy, unfortunately, that counted, the chief, and obviously he's getting pressure from above him or whatever. But this is the critical moment that could have made things better earlier. Is if that chief put his white body in the way of the powers that be above him to say, no, I'm gonna allow my people to continue to do this because change was obvious in our area during this time. That white could have been a white ally that did some good.
Right there. Look, these are the numbers. this is the shit that matters. Numbers don't lie. And I'm telling you this is what I'm going to do I'm the fucking police chief. I'm going to do this in my area. If it blows back, it blows back on me.
Right.
But I'm going to put myself, like you said, put myself, my body in that, in harm's way.
I've decided to start saying it like that, like put your body in front of black bodies and stuff like that, because I feel like since people of color are treated in sort of an animal type of way, then you got to boil it down to sort of the base way of looking at it. This is a body, and I need you to shield this body, this black body or this brown body, with your white body. Do you value your white body? Then, and we value ours, like put your white body that you value in front of these black bodies to make change. Like that's why I've started to say it this way, because I feel like it would appeal to that person that is just kind of so tunnel vision about. Right.
It sounds very simplistic. You know what I'm saying? Like it sounds like just put your body in front of, you know what I'm saying?
It sounds rude.
But it sounds rude and like shit, put your body there. But it actually says, look, that means everything that this person is doing, like you said, has to come through me.
Yeah.
Right. And are they that, that person, it's hard for them, you would to think that they would be like, you know what? All right. 2 with 1 stone, you know what I mean? But to go through that person, they make them think a little bit more, at least a little, you know? I
mean, and think about what that means for people like us, like mixed black people, we were lighter. We do have some light skin privilege, whether we ask for it or not. There are ways in which, we've talked about it before where, in the workplace where we can be more palatable, to the white people in power because, we're not as dark or as scary or whatever the fuck. Maybe not you because you're the Hulk, but you're light skinned Hulk or whatever. But we have to even confront it as sort of mixed people of saying like, why are we going to speak out about these issues? I get asked that question even before I started doing my podcast or whatever. I was asked that question. Why do you always talk about race? Why do you always point out when white people do things wrong? Why do you do this? Why do you do that? All right, do you hate white people? Whatever. No, I don't hate white people. I hate white privilege. I hate what white privilege allows white people to get away with. I feel the need to call it out because I don't think that, my dark brother and sisters' voices are getting listened to as much as lighter skin or white people, right? Like, you don't want that to be the reality, but I think that it is. You have people shouting from the mountaintops and, we're 200 years into this country existing and we're still fighting. We're still screaming with our voices, with our bodies, with our deaths. We're trying to say fucking change needs to happen. And so if it's not working there, why shouldn't I speak up about it? So by the nature of us being mixed, we're both, part of the people being affected by this and partly the ally, because we have, like, I feel the need that I need to put my lighter skin body in front of a darker skin body in some circumstances. And I hope that if the situation comes down to it, that I do that. Even at risk to myself, like I don't want to find out in a bad situation that I'm going to cower. I don't want to find that out about myself. I don't believe that I will, but I don't know. When you're faced with real fear, I don't know what it's going to be like. And so to try to answer the question of allyship and what is responsibility, like I know that I don't want to make anybody do anything I'm not willing to do. So to ask a white person to stand and block, racist against us is a lot to ask. I have to be willing to do it too.
Do it yourself. Most definitely.
Years and years and years ago, South Park made a joke about, I think it's like probably the first or a few early episodes or something where they were fighting a war with Canada or something maybe, and they had, they strapped all these black characters to planes and put them in front of things, and they called it Operation Get Behind the Darkies. And that joke has rolled around in my head so often. It was so disgusting to me but I started to see it everywhere. It was like, oh, you just sent a whole bunch of brown people into blah, blah, blah. That's Operation Get Behind the Darkies. You just did this, you just did that. And, or if they put like a Ben Carson or something in front of us, parade him around as a black Republican, we're like, oh, that's just Operation Get Behind the Darkie right there. So, I've been feeling this thing and now I want the flip of it. I want Operation Get Behind Whitey. I want to strap white bodies in front of us as shields and protect us so that we can go about making change. But that also brings me back into the movie about usage of mixed race people in roles that are highly black. You and I, we're mixed black. like that's why we say we're mixed, but we're black. We're mixed black, but we're black, and we're black as fuck. Like with the way we talk about black issues or whatever, we see our blackness first. I think it's fair to say for both of us, we see our blackness first.
That is fair to say.
And as a mixed race person, obviously, I get a high when I see other mixed race people in different positions. I'm like, yes, be in that role or do this or whatever. You know, I never referred to Obama as the first black president. I referred to him as the first openly mixed race president. You know, he was biracial. He was literally African American, not figuratively African American like I think we call ourselves. You know, like I love that kind of stuff. I want to put forward mixed race people as much as I want to do any POC. Right. But I asked myself the question, was it the right choice for Spike Lee to put a biracial woman in the role of the black student-bodied president character? I don't know if that person in real life was mixed race. So that's the other question. I don't have the answer to that.
Right.
But was it a good call for Spike Lee to choose a light-skinned, biracial black woman to play Patrice over, say, someone like Tiona Parrish or someone darker skinned?
Yeah. No, I didn't. I mean, I don't know if because I do see like, oh, okay, Mix got, she got her part or whatever. I don't know. I mean, I was a part of, Black Student Union. You know what I'm saying?
Same.
I don't know if I would go to being the president or whatnot, but I know that it can also just put out there that we are all shades of brown. You know what I'm saying? So unless a white person goes and says, okay, let me research that person, you know what I'm saying? She looked the part, but also I think that it was also kind of a throwback to kind of the, because they were talking about the blaxploitation movies and Foxy Brown and how Foxy Brown was real light. And not real light, but she was light.
She was light in terms of what black people were on TV looking like. Right. Yeah. But also, I was wondering if he was trying to make a visual parallel with Angela Davis too, because Angela Davis is very fair.
I mean, that could have been the reason why he wanted to kind of get that look. She did a good job.
She did a great job,
and I can see that. You know what I mean? Keeping his character honest. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Because I don't think he is really a person who actively participates in colorism. Right. I feel like he does put dark skinned bodies. He does. But at the same time, he has had a lot of light skinned leads that are super black. School Days. Giancarlo Esposito was, kind of on the lighter side, but he played a very black, pro-black role, things like that. He's done that throughout. But then on the flip, he's had Denzel play Malcolm X, and Denzel is quite a lot of it darker.
A little darker than
So I don't want to accuse him of that here, but I was wondering both things. Was he trying to make a visual parallel to Angela Davis because of the light skin, or was he sort of following pressure to having a light skin?
I mean, I have a hard time thinking that just because of the name of the movie. I just don't know if that's it. I mean, who do you think his core audience is going to be? Do you think I hope that it's a lot of white folks.
Yeah, that's true. In my screening of it, I would say there was probably at least like 10% or so of white people there. There was a lot of span between Latinx to black through there.
That was mine, and I was even in. I live in the South Bay, so it's one of those theaters that I went to. It was mostly like you said, about 10% white, and then the rest of the Latinx too.
In this case, I didn't have a hard line with BlacKkKlansman about Laura playing that role. It was a question that popped in my head the second she started speaking. I was like, okay, she's the president of the Black Student Union. Are they trying to make a parallel to Angela Davis, or are they using a light-skinned actress versus a dark-skinned actress? But again, I feel like I'm kind of creeping on a strange line. It is a really strange line for a mixed race person to teeter on. Is like, you're not having dark enough people play dark skin roles.
But that's not, I think that it's not that you're like teetering on a line in the sense that what we want is representation.
Right.
Right. What we want is to be in a movie. Like, I remember that. You remember that little Cheerios commercial everybody was tripping on because the white mama and the black dad, and then they had a mixed girl.
Right.
Right. Like, to me, that was like, oh shit, that's my life.
That's your life. That's regular ass life. Right.
Right. So I think that what you're not really saying, like, well, should we, this and that, there's a line. What I'm thinking you're saying, you want representation to be correct, not just throw it in there. It's not about, hey, if that person is this, you shouldn't do this. You just want, hey, if the person is supposed to be this, why not do this?
Yeah, if the person is a dark-skinned character, put a dark-skinned actor in that role. If the person is a light-skinned character, put a light-skinned person in that role. If the person is mixed race, hire a mixed race person. Like, it's the same with the question about whether or not gay and trans people should be hired in gay and trans roles versus straight people first. One, I say absolutely because of representation and because of, the thing about acting is that, yes, you are playing at a role, but you're also trying to give authenticity to something. And to make us believe it and to make us feel the right feelings, if the actor comes from a background that is similar to what they're portraying, that only serves the role. It doesn't detract from the role. If that's what they say actors do all the time anyway. They draw from real things, and if it's not exactly like what the role they're playing, they make a parallel through other emotions, through other feelings.
And other things that,
at least start with people that are like that.
Right.
Because otherwise, casting notices would only say an actor or an actress. You right? Like, they wouldn't be descriptive if you didn't want it to come from those places. So, again, Black Panther, if it was played by a light-skinned dude, I would have called foul, because we're talking about Wakanda being a closed-off nation of African people. You're going to throw someone with colonialist blood in them? No, it's not going to work.
It's not going to work.
So, give me dark-skinned Wakanda. Dark-skinned Wakanda across the board, and I'm there for it because that shit makes sense.
Right.
Now, could Killmonger have been played by a mixed-race person? Possibly, because his father left Wakanda and could have potentially, been...
done something.
Whatever. But, so, like, in that case, the only person that I could have justified having a lighter skin tone would have been Killmonger just because he was born outside of Wakanda. Every other black person in that movie needed to be dark-skinned. Boom. They did it. Yeah. Fine. Yeah. There's only one that I recall, one light-skinned Dora, but, she didn't have lines or anything.
Dora Milaje,
So, that's just the feelings I have. I'm still working it out. But you're right, it is about representation. It's the thing that I find super important. If, if they ever make another movie about Barack Obama, if they had his dad played by a light-skinned guy, or they had his mom played by, like, a dark-skinned Italian, it'd be like,
right, that doesn't work.
So across the board,
be accurate.
Just try to be accurate. And we're not going to be mad at, like, at least people of color, we're not going to be mad at seeing people that look like us on screen. We're going to be really happy. We're going to feel represented. We're going to feel seen, and that's the important thing about it. That actually is something that I did like about Chirac, was how black it was. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's It's the... Gosh, I feel like I always going to say these things wrong because I come from a mixed race perspective. But if your story is a black as fuck story, give me black as fuck people. Right. If your story is like, there's a movie that had Zoe Kravitz in it called Yelling to the Sky, where she plays a mixed race character. Sure, she has a white dad and a black mom. They gave us a light skinned girl to play that role. Right. That shit makes sense. They gave us what we needed to make that feel believable. Now, is it possible that some people are mixed race and are super, super dark or super, super light? Yeah. I mean, you and I know people we went to high school with that are like that. But, they're not the rule. They're the exception. Majority of biracial black and white people look like you.
Exactly. And it's one of those things where, like, when I was growing up, I always got mad about that, because they would have the white guy with the black woman, or the black woman, black guy with the white girl, and they would always have a black kid. And I'm like, that doesn't make sense, because everything. But I thought that it was kind of like the way maybe white people saw it like, okay, once you have a little bit of blackness, you're black.
You're black, right?
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that always bothered me too. It'd be like 2 dark-skinned parents and all 3 kids are light-skinned, or a dark skin, or the light-skinned parents and all the kids are dark-skinned. Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, original Auntie Viv was dark-skinned, Uncle Phil was light-skinned. The kids were all different. There was dark-skinned, there was light-skinned, there was kind of somewhere in the middle. But then when they switched to light-skinned Aunt Viv, Carlton and what was the little sister's name in that show?
I know it was Tatiana Ali.
Tatiana Ali's character. Like, they didn't make sense in that family anymore.
Right.
And I know we have throwbacks. Sometimes we do have these random things that occur. I mean, my father's other kids are, instead of Japanese, they're Mexican, so black, white, and Mexican. My half sister looked like I did at her age, but she's blonde and green-eyed.
Wow.
But we have a very similar face. Like, we both look like my dad. And she's got, white skin or whatever. She just looks like a white girl with green eyes.
Right.
But we don't know where those green eyes come from. There's not a single living soul in our family that has green eyes. So it must come from somewhere back when.
It's probably from, like, the Germans, when the Germans came over in Mexico and they started.
She also has some Northern Italian in her, too. So it's possible, like Swiss Italian or whatever. So it's possible it comes from there. Because my full brother has dark black eyes. My younger half brother, I don't know them. I've seen pictures of them. He's got dark eyes too. I have medium tone light brown eyes, and then she's got these green eyes. This shit is weird. I don't know where it comes from, but we have throwback. I get it, but just try.
Right. That's all we want. That's all we want, and that's really is that just represent who you're supposed to represent and do it correctly. That's it. Yeah.
So before we wrap up, do you have any other closing thoughts about BlacKkKlansman?
My closing thoughts on BlacKkKlansman would be, go see it, understand the parallels between what you're seeing as in historical and is as in what's happening right now that is historical, because like they do say, you know what I mean, everything is cyclical, you know what I'm saying? And so in the movie, when they say shit like, when David Duke says we have to, because he's like I forget what he is actually, his position at that time, but he got into like a Congress type of position, and he's like, look, this is the only way we're going to take back our country is if we get people in these positions of power. Yeah. And you have to know and you have to see that and understand that. Like, we're not just saying this shit. We're not just saying Trump is racist because we want to. We're saying it because he is, for one thing, and you have to know who he's playing towards, who his audience is. Right. And if and you may not be a racist, because there's a lot of people out there that, that did vote for him aren't racist. But if you side, this is my position is if you side with that, if you side with that, then you're okay with racism, and
you're
that's not something we.
You're at least complicit in it, right?
Exactly.
And the thing is like, from my position is, if you are not racist, then you cannot be complicit in it. No, you can't pass on this issue. There's no other issue he has that is big enough to, for lack of a better term, trump the racist issue. If he's willing to dehumanize people just on the basis of their color or the fact that they come from, different social economic backgrounds or whatever, then that's the biggest thing. There is nothing else. There's no financial thing. There's no other political thing that is big enough for us to sacrifice that. Right.
And there's no shades of racism. You know what I'm saying? It's either or. I mean, you have to understand that, and people have to understand that. Look at this movie and see that, and at the end, I love the way that the upside down flag. I've always wanted a upside down black flag. You know what I'm saying, with the black stripes and the white stripes, because it just has I don't know. It's always played to me. It definitely kind of like that Stankonia
makes you feel in the background. Something. Yeah. Right. Yeah. It definitely does.
So yeah, I mean, I would say go see it. And enjoy.
Yeah, I don't have really anything to add. I would say the same thing. Yeah. I mean, like I said, I think it is one of his best movies to date, and I don't know if that's just because it's the most recent one or what, but it wasn't, he didn't make any mistakes. Those things he was doing was very strategic, and we need to pay attention to that kind of stuff.
He did,
I want, of course, like we talk about this, like I want black people to come out for all the black movies because I want to, I want the industry to acknowledge that we have power in our dollars. But more than black people going to see this movie, I want white people to go see this movie.
Exactly.
Or any black movie, like Black Panther, Sorry to Bother You, Moonlight, Get Out, like whatever the black movie is or whatever, I want white dollars to pay for those movies too.
Right. And I want to see that the Beale Street that's coming out from James Baldwin. Was it Beale Street? Yeah, that looked good. That's from the Moonlight director.
This is our second episode, or officially first episode, but second episode of Militantly Mixed, the Black AF edition. Well,
you got it. Black as fuck.
Black as fuck. We say AF for, iTunes or whatever, but the Black as fuck edition.
In the name.
Like you said earlier, we're mixed, but we're black.
There it is.
We want to talk about these things. We want black people up.
Get them up.
Get them up. All right. And that's all right.
All right, girl.
Militantly Mixed, the Black as Fuck edition is a ManeHustle Media podcast, produced and edited by Sharmane Johnson, co-hosted by MixedGirlMane and Blerdvision. Music is provided by Hwoodplayers and Pond 5. If you like what you heard on Militantly Mixed, the Black as Fuck edition, please subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts. And you can follow us on social media on Twitter at MMBlackAF and Instagram at Militantly Mixed BlackAF. And if you want to sponsor the podcast, please go to www.patreon.com/militantlymixed. Peace, y'all. This is a ManeHustle Media podcast.